Myofascial release is a series of trigger point release techniques designed to hydrate and restore sensation to different dehydrated parts of our body. In traditional training, we generally focus on the musculoskeletal system, which is our muscles, our bones, our tendons, our ligaments, our joints, all the different pieces of the body that contribute to how we move. But have you ever thought to ask, how do these pieces all actually work together? And this is where the fascial system comes into play. So when we move, we don't have to think about moving individually each joint or each part of our body or every cell of our body. That would obviously be impossible. Our body is also lined with an integrative web of connective tissue called fascia that are loaded with nerve endings that help our bodies not only communicate with different parts of one another, but also with the brain itself. And the same way that a muscle can get tight or get compressed, our fascia can also get tight or compressed as well, and that can oftentimes be the root cause of pain and of mobility restrictions. So to give a quick example of that, a lot of folks have issues with their shoulder mobility. That's a really common issue that I've seen. For folks to be able to lift their arm or shoulder directly overhead without flaring the ribs out is oftentimes a challenge. And people might see that and immediately think, okay, I've got a shoulder mobility problem, let me just work on my shoulder mobility. But let me offer this as an example to change how you might think about that. If you've got restrictions in your lateral rib cage, which is really common if we spend a lot of time hunched over or sitting or in poor postures, you can imagine my shirt here as this web of connective tissue. And if I pull tightness on my shirt here, which you can imagine is tightness in the fascia, I can't lift my arm very far overhead. But as soon as I release the tension of the shirt, also the fascia in this example, all of a sudden, I gain this mobility back here. Our fascia run in something called lines. There's a front line, a back line, a lateral line, and different spiral lines. I won't go into the specifics for the purpose of this video, but if you want more depth on the content and information there, I would suggest looking into Tom Meyer's different research papers and videos that he has available on Google on the different fascial lines. He's the core researcher on all of this, and he's going to be able to explain it in great depth. But for the purposes of this video, the key takeaway is that if you have restrictions or compressions in some part of a fascial line, that might be the root cause of why you have mobility issues elsewhere in a fascial line. And a localized approach is not going to be sufficient for solving the issue. So going back to the purpose here, we're going to be going over a series of different myofascial release techniques that are going to restore sensation to the entire fascial lines across our body. If there's any parts of our body right now that are compressed, not receiving enough blood, they're calcified or dehydrated for whatever reasons, usually because we get stuck in certain positions from the ones that we spend the most time in, they're going to inhibit the signals going to the brain that are going to help us move safely. So for example, if you spend a lot of time seated and working at a desk, and this is what I'd spent a lot of time the last 4 years doing in investment banking and private equity, so I'm very familiar with the restrictions on the body that come from this, you're going to have a lot of inhibitions on the body that are going to prevent you from moving safely. If you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day with your feet up in a flex position, hunched over, looking forward at a computer, your fascia are ultimately going to shift into those positions permanently. And it's going to take a decent amount of work to help make the fascia more malleable again, so that when we start our integrative corrective movement and dynamic movement, the changes and adaptations from those movements will stick better because our fascia are not going to be pulling us into the same positions that they've become accustomed to for our lifestyle changes and habits. So that's a long-winded way of saying that myofascial release techniques are going to be what make our frames a lot more adaptable to the subsequent work that comes in the integrative corrective exercise, in the dynamic strength work, and then in anything fast and athletic that we do. And on top of that, it's going to keep us much more safe because our bodies are going to be communicating more efficiently through the nerve endings with each other, as well as with our brain. So the nervous system to body connection is going to be much smoother with all of this. And this is, again, going to be one of the key ways to release a lot of the phantom pains in the body that you might not know why you have. So it's a fundamental first step in the programs that I do. I call it the first of the 4 phases. The 4 phases of the program being sensation, restoration, integration, and application. This is step 1 with sensation. All of this work here, again, is going to drive blood, drive water, drive circulation to all the different parts of our body to make sure that everything comes next sticks better and is safe.